Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 16th, 2020 Instructional Committee meeting of the Concord School Board. We are having our meeting remotely this evening. There's no live area. We're also not having public comment tonight. I'm going to go ahead and read the governor's order to start the meeting as is required under our school board regulations. So if you'll be patient with me, I'll read through this and then I'll do a roll call attendance at the end. The emergency meeting statement: as chair of the instructional committee of the Concord School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. The business we intend to conduct today is necessary in order for the committees to plan the coming months and make any recommendations to the full board. Please note that there is no physical location for tonight. This meeting was going to be held in the district's high school auditorium or central office, but we are providing the following. Public access to the meeting is available by telephone with additional access by other electronic means. We are utilizing Microsoft Teams for this particular meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the platform, and the public has access to listen in and, if necessary, participate, although tonight we will not be taking public comment. The board doesn't, We do encourage submission of citizen comments via email at concordinfo@sau8.org. And I will reiterate, if you have comments or questions specific to this meeting, please send them to that email address because we will address them later or tomorrow. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Microsoft Teams or telephonically. The meeting and pertinent instructions were posted on the website of the board at sau8.org and at 38 Liberty Street and are highlighted at the top of the website. Mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-513-9008. If you want to come into the meeting on a phone, the number is 925-391-1169, and the conference ID is 793218. We are also on YouTube CCTV. Because we're remotely holding the meeting, I will do a roll call attendance. I will call full board attendance, and then I'll ask Donna or Kathleen to summarize what administrative members are here. So I will take attendance now. So Gina Cannon, are you here?
I am here and I am currently alone, although that may change as people wander in and out of the room.
Gotcha. Mr. Croto, in your tie, are you here?
I am, and I am currently alone.
Thank you. Mr. Crush, are you here tonight? I'm here and alone for the moment. Mr. Parker?
I am here and pleasantly alone.
Ms. Ponier?
Here and alone.
Excellent. Ms. Walsh?
Here and alone currently.
Ms. Smith?
I am here and also currently alone.
Excellent. And Mr. Richards?
I am here and alone.
Excellent. So we have 8 of the 9 board members and all of our committee members present. So thank you, everybody. Donna or Kathleen, would you let the public know what administrators are here? That'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. Joining us tonight for our instructional committee, Donna Pally, our assistant superintendent, Jack Dunn, our business administrator, Steve Mello, our athletic director, Steve Rothenberg, our executive director for our CRTC, and Michael Reardon, principal at Concord High School. And I believe that Paulette will be joining us. So Paulette Fitzgerald, our principal at the middle school.
Excellent, excellent. So we have a fairly brief agenda this evening. We'll be looking at enrollment. We'll be looking at our athletic and co-curricular budgets to sort of stay hand in hand with the finance committee, and we'll be concluding our evening with a look at a guidance matrix that has been being worked on extensively over the past couple of weeks. So our first item on the agenda is to look at the enrollment report, and so I believe that's Kathleen and Donna.
Yeah, I'll start, and Donna's going to jump in, but before I start, I want to just thank Donna for all her help. Obviously, I'm trying to learn all the ins and outs of all of the positions in the district and where they are and who they are and how many. So without her assistance, that would have been pretty difficult for me, and I appreciate it. And there were other folks. Steve Rothenberg was very helpful with all of the information on CRTC, and all of the buildings provided us with data of which we took from them so that we could get the most current up-to-date data, and as well as members of Jack Dunn's staff who helped provide us with the information around all of the positions in the district. So I say kudos to everybody, because without their help, I would not have been able to do this report for you. You all had the report. We put it up on your Google Drive so that you could see it. I hope that you will use this report as we go through the budget process. I think this is the reason for us doing it, so that you have a really good handle about what the budget, the impact of the budget is based so much on this document. When you think about it, you know, almost 80% of your budget is based on the personnel that you hire and that are employed in the Concord School District. So we hope that we can give you a good overview of that. And that's what we intend to do. We're not going to go line by line through every single one of them, because the data is the data. So unless you have questions, please don't hesitate, stop us. The folks are here that can answer any questions that's in the weeds that I might not be able to answer, or Donna, because they are the ones with the boots on the ground, so to speak, and you know they live these numbers every day. So why don't we get started then? Unless there's anything else that you want to mention, I'd like to get started. Jack is going to show us has a PowerPoint, so we're going to put that up. Jack, could you put that up for us so we could start?
Do you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. It looks great. If you could skip
yep.
to the next slide.
Yep. There we go.
This is the information so that everybody knows that it was posted, and we're
and these,
following legal requirements.
This presentation is in your in both finance and the instructional, since it's a joint meeting. Whenever we do that, we put it in both folders so you can see what's about to be presented. Here are the members for tonight.
Sorry.
And then enrollment report, again, athletic and co-curricular budgets and guidance matrix. So we'll get started first with enrollment.
Hey, Jack.
Donna? Yeah.
Jack, can you make that a little larger for these old eyes?
Sure. Yeah, I will do it. How is that looking?
So perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that looks
So
good,
I will
Jack. That
use
looks
my
great.
finger and scroll up. For those probably at home, that's going to look a little wacky, but let's see if this if that works. So there you go.
So this first slide is really important, because this is the one that tells you where have we been in the last 10 years. So we gave you a quick overview. You can see that we've seen some decreases in student enrollment. You know, that's not unusual. That's happened all across the state. And in many ways, it's because of births to New Hampshire moms, right? Hopefully we'll make up some time over the next few months, but I didn't even get a smile out of that. I didn't get a smile. Danielle did. But we've seen a decrease in numbers. It's interesting to see where they are. Remember now, these are the numbers from October 1st. And so you all know what happened in October. We had a number of students whose families made the decision to homeschool them or enroll them in a private school because perhaps they could meet their needs better as a family. Just to give you some information about that area, we've instructed our principals to call all of the folks that left us to go to private schools and to our private or parochial schools or home schools to find out if they'll be returning. At the elementary level, we're seeing a lot, the trend right now is many of them are returning. Where we don't see them returning, and although we haven't had great losses, is at the high school. I think when a youngster is in high school, they're a junior or a senior, they're not going to come back. I mean, they're going to finish out their high school career and not make another move. So we sense that that's what's happening. Michael and his team have been doing that, calling families and gathering that data. After the holiday, we'll update you on those numbers, so they'll be clear about how many youngsters will be returning. Just as a side note, this will be very important for us because I know that you intend to share with your legislative delegation your concerns about adequacy, right? And our entitlements, which are based on enrollment. And so we want to be able to use numbers that are real and not numbers that have been skewed because of COVID-19. So this is really important data for us to use with our legislators so that we don't lose huge amounts of money. And right now, as you know, we are in line to lose money from adequacy. So, but anyway, if you take a look at your elementary and your middle and your high school numbers, you can see that actually the high school grew by 15 students. So we didn't lose anybody there. Actually gained it, lost about 45 students at the middle school and about 100 out of the 150 out of the elementary. So, but we believe a lot of those youngsters will be coming back. Jack, will you, yeah, can we go to the, yeah. So then I wanted to really break it down. We wanted to break it down for you by showing you each of the schools, what the enrollment is at each grade level, K through 5. In addition to that, we wanted to show you how many sections at each grade level, and then what would be the class size, what would be the student-teacher ratio. And as we look at that, we keep in mind the guidance document, the policy that you have relative to class size. And certainly in the elementary school, we've been able to adhere nicely to that class size. The numbers are really good right now. You can see that in the early grades, your numbers are a little bit lower, which is great. You know, those are the years we're teaching reading and math and those beginning skills. And certainly our young students need a lot more attention. But as they go up in grades 3, 4, and 5, you'll see those numbers increase a little bit across the district. Down below, oh yeah, that's great. Then again, I think I got all of that. Yeah, in this one, it's the same data. It's the same data, but we're showing you the enrollment, 10-year enrollment history at the middle school level. So you can see over 10 years, you've lost 100 students over 10 years. That's over 10 years, that's 10 students a year on average. That doesn't mean like you can cut a class, because you know, you got to think about those 10 students spread out in 3 grade levels. So you're losing 3.3 students per grade level over 10 years. Just so you're not losing a teacher, or you can't make any changes there. Again, we anticipate some of these students that we lost in the 1-year change, which you can see 44 students. We anticipate some of those youngsters coming back. So one of the things that's important is all of the academic and what's the right word I want to use? All the academic areas that we want to talk about. Also the integrated arts, that's what I was struggling to think of. What does that look like? What's the class sizes in those programs? You can see that we looked at language arts. First we started with art. Simply art, and how many teachers and what the enrollment is, how many sections and what the average class size is. And these are all the numbers for grades 6, 7, and 8. And in how many teachers, what's the enrollment, how many sections, and the average class size. So we're keeping an eye on a couple of those classes in English. You can see are hedging a little high, so we want to keep an eye on that. Tech ed is there, then your math classes look pretty good. Those math numbers look very good. manageable for our teaching staff. Music is there. Now you might see those numbers a little bit larger, but you have to remember now that will be reflective of the performing groups, band, chorus, orchestra, that kind of activities that youngsters do. Science, this year, the science numbers, that's a little high, science, especially when you're doing a science lab. I looked at that number, a little concerned, but I also know I looked back at the numbers of students coming in, and we're seeing a small reduction, so that number should hold steady. I don't see it growing and getting larger. If anything, it will reduce a little bit next year and then the following years. So, but we'll keep an eye on that also. And of course, social studies, and then your PE health classes and your world language. Kind of gives you an idea of the academic program and integrated arts offered at Runlet. Stop me if I'm going too fast now, because it's a lot of data, but I know that most of you are pretty accustomed to this. This is the 10-year enrollment over at the high school. We include both our Concord students as well as the students that attend from Deerfield. You can see that you have over 10 years lost students over those 10 years, 200 students. And again, that's reflective of what's happened across the country. And there are more options for high school students when you think about it. For those students that think about St. Paul's or Phillips, Exeter, Andover, some of the private schools and the parochial high schools. So I think that, all high schools experience that. Deerfield has also sent less students than they did 10 years ago, but over the last 5 years or so, they've stayed pretty steady. Good news is this year we actually grew in a tough year, so that was good to see. I think, Tom, you have a question?
I do, thank you. And I probably asked it last year, and I probably asked it the year before. But our enrollments are going down a little bit in our elementary schools. And I know that we have St. Paul's, we have Bishop Brady, and we have a number of other schools, but we've had those schools around for 10 years. Is there any other factor that, and I know you're brand new to our district, so Kathleen, I don't expect that you would have this off the top of your head, except your vast knowledge of education in general. But maybe Donna, do we have any idea or sense of why or where these kids are, where they have been going? And I'm assuming that there's kids, because if we've got X number in 7th, 8th, and 9th, and we're only losing a few, then once we get to the high school, a 10-year, 200-person plus drop has to account for something.
Tom, I want to just throw out one idea to address your concern, and that's that our refugee population has decreased quite a bit over the last few years. I mean, obviously I wasn't here, but I've certainly heard about that decrease, and it's probably maybe 100, as many as 75 to 100 kids fewer in the refugee population than we used to have at its height.
Okay, it just makes me wonder, because we have clearly one of the finest high schools around, and there's no parochial school that can compare to what we do and what we offer in terms of those kinds of things. They certainly, offer other things that we don't, but just something that I was thinking about. Thank you.
Donna, do you have something that you wanted to share?
Yes, and Dave Parker has his hand up as well. Why doesn't he go first, and then
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
That's fine. I mean, I happen to be in the private school side of things as well, and I think there's a number of things going on here, and I'm not certain of all of this, but what I've noticed is that, we may say that a parochial school can't offer anything that all the things that Concord High has, but they offer something that some people want.
Right.
You also do not just have St. Paul School, you have Tilton School, and you have New Hampton School, and you have schools that are basically our private network of schools, wonderful places, are not highly, their admissions is not highly competitive. They're a draw. Charter schools continue to be a draw, and charter schools just got, under the new Republican legislature, a big influx of money. Why would people choose charter schools? Because there's a feeling that a large public high school might not be, kids may not fit in that. They may get overwhelmed. Even with all the wonderful offerings that we have, they may want something that's smaller and is more specialized. Arts and music, charter schools can be more specialized without a whole lot of regulations. So when you add that with demographics that are showing, I think, a decrease in school age population in a town that has very high, it's expensive to live in town. I mean, if you look at the trend, I think you're seeing a trend in downward numbers. What I can't project, or what I think about, is what's the next 10 years look like with regard to some of this stuff, because I think at some point we're going to have to answer to the taxpayers about why are our expenses staying, the way they are when our population's decreasing. And I would agree that, you can't decrease a personnel when you're just losing 2 kids in a class, but it's trends. And our trends, I think, we're going to be facing as we move towards the future. But there are a lot of different private alternatives, not to mention homeschooling. And this year is an anomaly. I don't think we can even look at this year from a trend standpoint unless we really have accurately ferreted out all the details of it, because there's so many variables right now that, but I think this is a big issue, is our student age population over time when it comes to all sorts of things that we offer. I mean, are we going to cut back on programs, et cetera, et cetera? So I don't think this is surprising, and that's just my offering to this topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Donna,
Dave.
did you have anything else?
No, I think I'd echo what Dave said. These numbers didn't surprise us in the last years, as they have been statewide declines in the school age population in New Hampshire, actually all across the country. So that was to be expected. And then, as Dave says, lots more options, whether it's VLAX or other opportunities online or homeschooling or private schools. So I think that these aren't surprising, but do know that we have reduced staff over time based on population declines. So we do respond to that over time. You can't necessarily do it if you lose or gain 15 students, but in the big picture, over 10 and 15 years, at all of our levels, we have reduced the number of teachers that work for us over time.
That's a good point, Donna. I won't take that away from you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Barb, I just see somebody's hand up. Is that all right if I call on him, or you want to call him? It's Gina. Yeah, you're muted, Barb.
Yeah, Gina can go ahead.
Thanks, Barb.
Yeah, well,
So I guess I'm not seeing what you all are seeing, because I'm looking at the Runlet enrollment history against the Concord High enrollment history. And let's say you take 2015-16, you've got roughly 300 to 325 in a class. If you roll that over 4 years later into Concord High, you've got the right number of kids. You've got 300 to 400 kids in each class. So I guess I'm not seeing what you all are seeing when I'm looking at, okay, let's see, in 2015, there are 300 eighth graders, and in 2016, you know what I'm saying? Those numbers are rolling over. It actually looks like we're gaining people as you go into the high school.
So
Go ahead.
Sorry, a couple of things on that, Gina. This is Donna. So what happens is that we have 3 years at Runlet, and then we have ostensibly 4, but actually more years, for some students, 7 years. So we do start to see students staying longer at the high school and taking their time. The ability to become, and Mr. Reardon can speak directly to this, but the definition of what's a 9th grader, a 10th grader, an 11th grader, and a 12th grader changes. It just doesn't become I'm going on to the next grade. You have to amass a certain number of credits. So there's times when you might have a slightly larger freshman class. Some of those students might be still hanging in there trying to gain a few more credits, and they're looking like freshmen, but they really were in 8th grade 2 years ago. It gets trickier at the high school level, though. So I will say that, and Mr. Reardon might be able to shed some more light on that as well.
No, that's the deal. You obviously need 20 credits, a minimum of 20 credits to graduate, and kids will accrue those over time at a different rate. And while they may have been there for 2 years or 3 years, they may not have attained sophomore or junior status over that time. We hope that they catch up as they go along, but Don is absolutely right. They might be technically still a freshman, even though they're in their second or, in a few unfortunate cases, third year.
Right. No, I'm just saying.
And then Deerfield, remember that Deerfield's coming in just at that grade level. They weren't at the middle school.
Right. No, I wasn't even looking at the Deerfield numbers. I was just looking at the Concord numbers and saying, okay, if you take the Runlet numbers per year and then multiply 4 of them, you've got more than that at the high school. So I guess I'm not seeing, above and beyond the demographic, I'm not seeing a whole lot of loss of students aside from the declining birth rates.
Right, it's just a decline, like a steady decline, not huge, but a steady decline over the 10 years. And in the last 5, 100, say, in 5 years. So it's not huge amounts of decline, and not a huge amount of kids more going to. We've always had kids who've gone to private schools, as I think somebody mentioned.
Any other questions on that? Because that is interesting. Those are data points that we have to keep an eye on and analyze. And you're right, Gina. Some of this is attributed to the numbers of births to Concord moms as it relates to students eventually being in the high school. So, anything else on that? Jack, can we go to the next slide?
Hold on 1 second. Let me just get you the right
Yep.
thing here.
It's all right. I think we finished with the 10-year look at the enrollment at the high school. That was the slide we were on.
Yeah. It should go right back to where we were. Hold on 1 second. Oh, here we go. So there was the high school, right?
That's
Okay.
right.
All
Right.
right.
So we're
Move
good
on.
with that. We're good with that. Then again, on this particular slide, we're trying to again show the major areas, the academic as well as the integrated arts, broken out by the number of teachers in those departments, the number of students, and then the average caseload for those teachers. And how many sections and average class size. So you can see that all. Just remember that some of the numbers you'll say, oh, 1,570 students. Well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, right? Well, we have students obviously who take multiple English classes. So they're going to be counted twice. So you'll see that in some of the areas, particularly in English, math, science, social studies, where there's a variety of courses that the students can take in those areas that are part of those departments, those core departments. Again, we look at class size. If you take a look at music, don't be alarmed by that, because again, it does reflect those orchestra, band, and all those sections in music that obviously have a larger number of students. And some of the specialized areas like reading, at that point in high school, you're talking about reading instruction in very small groups. Could be one-on-one, it could be, 2 students and 1 instructor. So don't be alarmed by that, or small groups. It depends, right? In terms of what our students need, but certainly critical skills for them to be successful. And so that's why you see those low numbers. Any comments on that page? Donna, is there anything else, or Mike, that you might want to add to that page that I didn't highlight?
No, I mean, things like reading are small because of the needs of the kids.
Right.
That's the simple reality of that. And in rural languages, which are a little bit smaller as well, it's the richness of what the school offers, namely 4 different languages, one of which is Latin. A lot of kids, and I'm just assuming this, a lot of kids will look at Latin and not really even understand what it is. But for some kids, that's a huge draw to the richness of a classical language. But it's, relatively speaking, it's small.
Right. Tom, you had your hand up.
Yes. So just to go off track here a little bit, Mike, your audio is not good. It's muffled, and it's difficult to hear what you're saying. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, but just to let you know that.
Mike, I dropped you. No, you might be a little too close. There you go.
Is that better?
My official role as an assistant principal.
Sometimes I forget what I keep you around for, Steve, actually.
I do have a little bit of value occasionally.
Yeah, I think you're still a little bit muffled, Michael. I don't know why. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Any other questions on all of the classes and class sizes and numbers of staff? I think if we were concerned about the numbers of staff, you might see those class sizes be much smaller, but they're fairly robust. I would say that they're very comfortable numbers. I think you see a little bit lower in your ELL teachers. Those are youngsters that they're teaching English and helping them with their core subjects, and so you're going to see smaller numbers of students in those sections, again, to meet the needs of those youngsters. I think we can go on if nobody has any questions. So this slide kind of gives you an idea about the areas and the history by each department over a 5-year period. Again, you're looking to see the percentage of students taking those classes in the high school. Obviously, the core subjects of science, social studies, math, and English have obviously the greatest percentage. Less in some of the other areas like you might see in music, and obviously reading, business, art, where not as many students would necessarily take that. But again, it's because there's such a rich curriculum and offerings that students can access at the high school. Any other thoughts on that?
Some of these numbers are interesting, Kathleen. We have an increase in the number of students taking English and pretty big decreases in the number of students taking math and science. So I think it's just like a reconfiguration, or lots of English classes are semester classes, so you can take, you know, one student might be counted 2 or 3 times again.
Right.
It's just interesting to look at some of the fluctuations, and in general, it seems very consistent, kind of the same. I mean, obviously, overall, it's about 100 less students, but yeah, it just caught my eye. Go English, I guess.
Well,
and I'll point out science too, where
Yeah.
99, you look at 99% of the students taking science, where you think about this, English, you're required to take 4
Yes.
years, but science and social studies, you're actually only required, or science and math, you're required to take 3 years. And so when you've been hearing over time, especially your instructional committee, on these new courses that they've been offering, and I think that's a reflection. And English has had some really awesome new courses, and social studies too. But I think you see kids taking multiple classes in those things, and classes that they don't specifically have to take, because they could be done with 3. You could have 75% of the kids taking instead of 99 if you figure they only have to do 3 years worth.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Donna.
Any other thoughts? I'm sure this comes up. I've always seen this slide like this in any presentation around enrollment, and people want to know, what about those sections that have very low numbers? And so we identified those sections with enrollment of 15 or fewer, and those are the classes. But one of the things that we were a little surprised about was some of the AP classes. And when looking at the youngsters that left the high school this year, we discovered that they were a number of students that were in those AP sections, or scheduled to be in those AP sections, that left and went to another school. So I think it is a little bit reflective in these low numbers. I don't know if anybody, and in like a couple like Latin, you got to be careful there because they combine level 4 and 5. If you do that, then it's the section is 15. The kids they're in that class together. They just differentiate the instruction based on the student's level. Also, your AP physics classes, they're also combined, and the teacher differentiates between the 2 levels. So. Any other thoughts? Michael, do you have any thoughts on that one? Does that?
Yeah, well, 2 things. One is that, as you suggested, we followed up with 20, and if I'm not coming across, if it's too irritating, just tell me and I'll stop. But we communicated with 28 families who had left this year. And those are primarily kids who went to private schools, and almost inevitably were enrolled in things like advanced placement classes.
Yeah.
So those, when we laid out those sections last spring, they were considerably larger. The other thing I would point out, it's a good example of it, is the German 4 you're looking at, with just 13 kids. Inevitably, when you come into the scheduling process, you'll come across a class like German 4, which is a fairly selective group of kids almost by definition. And it comes down to, you say, well, 13 is too small, but we have the personnel to teach that class. And the option would be to cut that teacher back, to make him or her perhaps a part-time instructor. But that's in the long range, that's a losing game, because you're going to probably need them to teach a much further German 4 the following year. So I'm just pointing out that something like that's almost inevitable every year when you have as many classes as we do. But overall, we do a pretty good job of trying to avoid those small enrollments.
Virginia has her hand up, so go right ahead, Gina.
Tom had his hand up first.
Okay, Tom, you first. I don't have a clear view of this, so I apologize.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Gina. So having done this budget for a long time, I think, Catherine, and you know this already, but I think for the public doesn't always understand why we have, 4 kids in a German 4 class or 8 kids in German 4 class, and why are we paying teachers to teach, such small classes? And what they sometimes don't understand that needs to come out clearly in a budget public meeting is that these same teachers are also teaching other things. So these kids are not getting, we're not paying a teacher just to come in and do this one small class. These classes these kids are being taught by these same teachers in other classes as well. And the other is, and you made the point before, but it's worth mentioning again, because again, if you think like a taxpayer, why is our enrollment, we hear it every year, why is our enrollment going down, down, down? I think Dave mentioned this earlier, and you just plain, the math just doesn't allow you to cut teachers when you have, 10 kids in a grade of 160, who have not shown up again. So I know we all know it. I'm not sure that the public always understands it. And so it's really worth putting it in our pockets for, January, February, when this comes up again. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Gina?
So I also wanted to bring to the attention, I'm sure we've noticed it, but again, to the public, that most of the classes, and I'm not sure even what discrete math is. Math was not my my forte. I'd have to ask my husband. But if you look at the classes, for the most part, AP Chemistry, AP Physics, French 5, German 4, Latin 5, these are all really, really high level classes. And I can see a lot of kids saying, the intensity of French 5. I took French 5 AP in high school. I remember how intense that was. For them to say, I don't think it'll be possible. I don't think it's going to work for me to do that potentially remotely. And so choose to go somewhere where they can get in-person AP Physics, AP Calculus, AP Chemistry. So I don't know to what extent these numbers are an artifact of COVID and the fact that people pulled some of their kids to go places where they could actually get the hands-on. I don't know how you do AP Physics without a lab, and I don't know how you do a lab if you're remote. So I just want to raise that question about whether some of this may be artifact to the times that we're in.
Yeah, Eugenia, I agree. I think, classes like that might be a bit of a stretch for a student. When it went remote, I think kids backed off. Some kids backed off it.
Yeah. Anything else? Those are good. Those are great comments, because that'll help us as we prepare for, as Tom alluded to, the budget process starting in February. I'm going to turn it over to Steve Rothenberg to go over some of the data that we have around our CRTC program. Steve?
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hi, Steve. Thank you.
Hey, so I'll give a brief overview, and there were a couple of strands of this conversation that leads to CRTC. One is what Dave is talking about, which is finding niches in schools that are by their nature dependent on people choosing to go there. Also, what Gina just talked about, the concept of being part of a lab and what it doesn't lend itself to remote. So I think most of you know the CRTC well. I'm not going to go down that road. The first screenshot here is the item in black is an interesting number, and we talk about our penetration rate into schools. So if you look at this chart here, it's really like an enterprise chart. Look at the far right column. of 22.46%. So of the eligible students, plus or minus, we're attracting 22.5% from all the schools we serve, which was a decline for the first time in a long time. And COVID really put us in a tough spot this year. We started the year with enrollment expected to be over 700 confirmed. And then as COVID hit and us trying to juggle, as you know, 9 different schedules, we had schools that said to students, if you go to CRTC, you cannot walk on our campus. They wanted to insulate their world from our world. So this year is not, this is a tough year for us. I thought our numbers would be much worse, but we're at 645 total enrollment. Dawn, if you hit the slide next, that'll be great. Or Jack, I'm sorry. There you go. This gives you sort of a picture of how many kids are from sending schools and how many kids are from Concord High. This number is pertinent for the budget. It's not just pertinent for enrollment because sending school kids bring in revenue, and that's sort of part of our calculation of what we do. And you can see, you know, look at the give or take 10-year trend of sending schools, and then you look at what happened with COVID. And that's who we lost. We lost Kearsarge. We lost John Stark. We lost Hillsborough. Literally, we had a huge recruitment class in Hillsborough, and we lost almost all of them. It just became so complicated to come here. COVID just really made things hard. So, Jack, if you give me one more, that'd be great. And I'll take questions in just a minute. And these charts here give you a snapshot of what school districts work with us. As you can imagine, when you look at a chart like this, if you look at the 7th row, give or take, Merrimack Valley, you know, you see that a huge percentage of students who attend Merrimack Valley also come here. So we have pretty complex partnerships with these schools that I spend a lot of time talking to them and see how we fit in. And again, if you go back in time to this summer, imagine attempting to line up to 9 different brand new schedules and how we pulled it off. So I really give credit to our teachers and our office team who just kept working and working to find a way to retain enrollment. That number, if it was a typical year, non-COVID, we would have been in the 710, 715 range this year. We were in that mode earlier. And hopefully next year we'll be. One more hit would be great, Jack. And as we just get into the specific classes and the numbers, and I'm not going to go through each one. You know, there's ones that got more hit by these numbers. Some got less hit by the numbers. People, you know, deciding to come here and being able to come here really just had a ripple effect across all our programs. And again, I thought I'd be talking to you today. This is my last comment. And I said this to Jack back when we were talking in the summer. I said, Jack, I could be coming to this meeting with enrollment of 350 kids. I honestly believe we could have lost half of our enrollment simply because schools wouldn't even send kids. And so I'm proud that we're at 645. I hope next year when I sit in front of you, we're at 715, which I think is where we should have been. But that's sort of our story this year. I appreciate just a couple minutes to talk about it, and I'll take any questions.
Steve, kudos to you and your crew. I think balancing this, the ability to have classes at all, and I look at how difficult it is as a board member to balance our own district. So to meet the needs of all the sending schools and all that, kudos to the community that still sends their kids to us. It's a huge weight on your shoulders, I'm sure. It's up to you to keep everybody safe. But these classes, they remind me a bit of the AP type classes where you have certain students that are very focused on what they want. And so these are the students sometimes in choosing those classes. This is it. There's no other place to take this class. So I can imagine that it's been fairly stressful on that level. As hard as it is to see the decline, it's a bit reassuring to see that we were still able to educate. We're still able to educate so many kids.
I use a certain bellwether, and we have a gentleman who's worked for us for years named Mr. Bill. He's our shop manager. But he's in the auto business for about 55 years. He's a terrific guy. And his line, and I think is great for the school board to hear this, he said, "This is a year that I've never seen students so appreciative and so polite and so positive to be here. And he's just that guy who picks up on these things, and I pick up on it too. Students walk out of class now and say thank you to their teacher on the way out. I think they get that, with your credit, the school board's credit and the SAU's credit, we stayed open. And it was, I think most of you know this, that we targeted to close with 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of January. We were going to wrap up on Tuesday. We almost made it. We made it. If tomorrow's a snow day, we missed 3 days. And for the entire state of New Hampshire, there's not many schools can say it. And I'll tell you one other story that's important to hear, that students consistently comment to me that this is by far the strictest safety model of any school they attend. And I say that because they're still coming. I think one of the reasons they like it is that we're strict about it. And
Right.
they understand that we're all in and that the weak link caused it. Obviously, and the superintendents confirmed this, we got a lot happening outside of school and it's just piling up. It's frustrating. But to again, the credit of our teachers and our employees that we work very hard to keep a safe environment.
Yeah.
So I'm not the proudest of these numbers. It is what it is. And I appreciate the leverage you give us to sort of grow. As Dave said earlier, I'll wrap up the last comment. Like those private schools, like the charter schools, we're an enterprise. There's not a single kid who has to attend the CRTC. There's not one mandatory enrollment. It's completely unlike the rest of the data you see in front of you tonight. We're an enterprise, and we have to have a value proposition, and we have to market ourselves and do what we have to do to tell our story. So, and it's best told by the students we have. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Steve. I saw someone's hands. Whose hand did I?
Tom.
Tom Croto. There you
So
are.
Steve, don't sell yourself short. Yeah, right now it's a gloomy 645, but 10 years ago it was 539. And so just even with COVID, you were up 106 over 10 years. And those extra kids, or those entire 645 kids, as Barbara said, this is their spot. This is their niche. This is what they need. If they were in a regular high school, perhaps they wouldn't be as happy. Perhaps they wouldn't be saying thank you. Perhaps they wouldn't be doing it as well. So CRTC program, I've been following it for all my years on the board. You do a terrific job. Everybody there does a terrific job. And it has a very, very important place in Concord High School. And thank you.
And I'll reiterate that we have 100% of our teachers here right now teaching on site. And the number you gave going up 100 is at a time when the enrollments went down 15%. So it's we've that penetration rate is really the most important piece of data I tell the school board in my mind.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add, CRTC wise?
We'll make sure you guys get our new brochure too. We'll get on the mail to you.
All right, Kathleen, what's next?
Have a good
So
night.
what's next? I'm going to ask Jack to get us to beyond we'll be looking at students with IEPs. Jack, yeah, there we go. Do we have the 5-year? Is this each school? Is there one before that, Jack? I guess this is the only, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm right. I'm looking at my book too. So we wanted to give you a little picture of, certainly our special education program is huge, has significant budget implication, right? So for every district, and it's important for you to see the numbers and the percents relative to that at each of this is for all of the schools, both middle, elementary, middle, and high. So it's numbers of students in the programs district-wide, pre-K through 12, 715, district total is 665. Numbers of students that are that have IEPs. And the column that I think is important is the percent of school enrollment. That's where we want to really look, because that district total is 17%. That's pretty much in line with the state average for numbers of students, percentage of students on IEPs that are receiving. Now remember, that's speech and language, that's occupational OT, PT, physical therapy, in addition to all of the more intense programs that the district offers. But it's around 17% of our students that are receiving. We also put the preschool in there too, and that's a little different every year because all the students in preschool, those numbers represent students with IEPs. So it's 100%, right? Because all the students in that program have IEPs. That's why they're receiving services at that age, the preschool age. The next one is the out-of-district placement, because often that has impact on your budget. The expenses to send a student out of district and to provide because they need certain attention, they need certain skills, they need certain programs that we may not be able to offer them, and it's always done through the IEP process. Including our staff and families, parents, sometimes a parent advocate, and our special administrative staff working together to find the right place for youngsters. So as you can see, we have 30 youngsters who have educational day placements, and you can see how it's broken out in the 3 levels, actually 4 levels, including our preschool. In addition, we have 2 students who are residentially placed in the district, and so of that 30, wait a minute, of the 30, 21 placed by us. Our teams placed 21 students into settings outside of our district. We know that there are 11 students that are placed by the courts. Those decisions are made in court, obviously with representation from our district, but that's a decision that's made by the judge with the input. And also students who are out of district because of foster placements. Donna, did I essentially grab the most important part of this slide? We talked about it this afternoon. You're on mute, Donna.
Yes, sorry, exactly. Yeah, I think that was the this chart.
Any questions on that? That's always one that's, and I have, from my perspective now, I'm the newbie. I thought this was a really impressive number. I have to be honest with you. I think the district, as I looked at programs, talked with folks, observed, the numbers are incredible for a size of over 4,000 students in your district and only have 32 students outplaced. You should be quite proud of that number. That means that the district is offering programs to students. It means that they can stay in their natural settings with their peer group. And, that's so important. The decision to put a youngster in a out-of-district placement. And again, please understand, there are times when that has to happen because either the parents and the teachers together make that decision to find a better solution for their youngster. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have that they're wonderful partners with us. We always hope that the youngster will come back to our schools in a public setting, but it depends on the progress made by students. But that you should be very proud of that because those numbers are incredible for a district your size.
Does anyone have any comments or questions on that? All right.
I think we can go to the next slide then. And it came up today a couple times in our discussion, and that was on charter schools. I think it's the next slide. Public charter schools, the numbers of students there on IEPs. We, as you know, we need to support if a youngster and family choose to have their child attend a charter school, then we have a responsibility to make sure that the IEP is met at the school. And it's done in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's paying for staff at the school. Sometimes we deliver a service. It really depends on how and where that student is as to what kind of services we provide. But we do have a responsibility to do that.
This involves just 2 charter schools right now, Strong
Oh, right.
Foundations, Strong Foundation School for K-8 and the PACE Academy for the high schooler. So there are 2 charter schools involved on this chart.
We'll be interested to see what happens with the $40 million that has been accepted by the state of New Hampshire for new charter schools and what that will mean. We'll be watching that very carefully over the next couple of months. And then obviously another program, wonderful program that's offered in the community is the English language programming for the students. And what we did was we broke it out for the number of students that receive services at each of the schools. And what that percentage of students are for each of the schools. And obviously there are a couple of schools like Broken Ground and Millbrook that have a higher percentage than the other schools. And of course, all of them eventually end up at the high school. So just to kind of give you an idea about the numbers of students and the percentage. We also, because we support our homeless students, and whether it's from federal funds, the McKinney-Vento monies that we receive, federal monies, or whether it's monies from the operational budget, this is to the best of our knowledge. You know, we don't always know if a youngster is currently homeless, but to the best of our knowledge, we feel that we have 67 students right now that are homeless that we support. And we broke it out both by the elementary schools and then by the middle and high school. And again, I'm not sure these are real numbers because it is hard to track them. And they're not always going to share that information with us. So that kind of wraps up our highlights for the enrollment report. Again, I thank the folks that helped me put this together, and certainly was a good exercise for me so that I could very quickly ascertain all of the information about the district. So special thanks to Donna and to Karen Reese and Lyndon and the folks here that helped put this together.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. A lot of information with a lot of impacts and a lot of things to observe. What always comes to me as a special educator, you look at the high-level courses in some of the CRTC classes that are very specific and address a certain type of student or a certain student interest. And then you look at special ed classes and reading classes and ELL classes. So on both sides of the academic picture, we have these intense small classes. And I think sometimes, you know, looking at justifying numbers, or for people who question our class size numbers, sometimes those small classes are the most intense places of learning, and the efforts by both students and teachers in those settings is profound. But I also feel like we've sort of looking at all this, we're a very consistent district. I feel very comfortable sort of feeling good about what we offer because we seem to offer it year after year after year. So that's what's sort of fun about looking at the big picture. Anyway, thank you. It's just interesting to contemplate as an educator on the board side of things. Anyone else before we move along to the big athletic question? All right. So is this, Kathleen, will this be more with you, or will this be primarily Steve?
No, I think Jack's going to kind of go over this financial piece on the athletics. And again, that was a request from the Finance Committee. Members are here tonight as it related to upcoming budget and to understand that piece of the budget.
All right, everybody good? So, and we have Steve Mello on tonight to be able to help chime in on some things, but we just wanted to kind of give you an overview. Everybody can hear me all right? And Steve, are you on?
I'm here, Jack.
All right, perfect. So just big picture from an athletic cost standpoint, what you're going to see tonight is the athletic program includes all these different pieces on the expense side. And then on the revenue side, we have participation fees, which we charge $85 at Runlet, $90 at Concord High, and the hockey programs, both senior and junior, are $385 more. We also have athletic transportation, and what happens is there's given an allotment at each level, and based on that allotment, they call and they say, "Hey, we need to transport kids from this place to this place. How many miles is it?" And it comes out of their allotment. So we have more of that detail in here as we move on. So first thing we're going to show you the stipends for all the athletics at both the Concord High level and the middle school level at Runlet. So as you can see here, and I apologize if this is small. So this presentation's on your thing. I'm going to try to enlarge it the best I can, but I pretty much took up the whole screen. You can see each sport, what we budget. We budgeted a step 3 and what percentage of the stipend is, and that percentage of the base stipend is based on B1 of the teacher scale. All of this is governed by the collective bargaining agreement in the teacher agreement. So you can see what we budget for each one. And then this is the Runlet fall sports. So I did Concord High. Now I'm doing Runlet. One thing to note, if you look at about a little bit above midway down, the athletic facilitator, there is a person that also supplements what Mr. Mello does as athletic director at the middle school, even though Mr. Mello oversees both athletic programs and the PE and health programs in the schools. There's also a complementary person that is done at the middle school to oversee sports. And these are also by season too. We also laid that out, and we do a summary at the end for you.
Jack,
Yeah.
Gina has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, I don't see that because I'm sharing my screen. I apologize. So go ahead.
Not a
Gina.
problem. So is the budget stipend based on the number of participants, how many years they've been doing it, size of the program? What?
Mostly the years in which they've been doing it. If it's a first-year coach, they're going to start out at a step 1, and then they'll move up the scale. There's only 3 steps. It's very simple. And Steve, if there's anything else you have to chime in on that, please do.
No, that's it. Just that you mentioned that it's all bargained for. So
Yeah.
there was a group that bargained to place the values on the different sports. Mostly, I believe it's done on the amount of the length of the season and how much time they ascertained was necessary for each sport.
Yes.
Gina, I will say, as a longtime coach in the district, that my smaller teams and teams that weren't so good, so my season ended at the division meet, I made the same amount of money that year as I made when I went from 10 athletes to 35 and made it to New England's, which adds 3 weeks to your season. So financially, it doesn't make sense to do well because you actually make less money when you look at the length of your season. I think sometimes this is lost on people. We have some pretty amazing coaches for these stipends, but that's another little caveat. If you don't have a successful season and you end early, you don't notice that in your paycheck.
Yeah, no, I wasn't complaining. I just was wondering, some people are 7, some people are 2, some people are 1, some people are 1,300, 1,700. I just wondered where did those numbers fall from the sky from?
Yeah, so if you look in the collective bargaining agreement, you'll notice all the way to the left, see where it says group? depending on where they're grouped in the collective bargaining, and then that determines a lot of the percentages, because some of the groups are lower percentages than others.
Okay,
And that's
thank
all on
you.
the teacher. Yeah, no problem.
Jack, Pam has her hand up.
Okay,
I
yeah,
can't see that at all.
go ahead.
Hi, how much revenue do the participation fees bring in? And are there scholarships? And what percentage of the athletic budget do the participation fees make up?
So the participation fees make up anywhere between $100,000 and $117,000. And that also includes gate receipts as well, because we pay somebody to handle collecting the money. Obviously, last year it was down a little lower. I think you're going to see further in the presentation about 97,000, and currently we've collected about 44,000. So that's about what we're at right now.
So gate receipts is how much we charge to go to the basketball game.
Correct.
So do you know the breakdown between participation fees and gate receipts?
I do, and when we start talking about the
If
decision
it's coming,
matrix, yep,
that's fine. I can wait.
yeah, no, in the decision matrix, I can give you about what they are per each. But when I give it to you, I give you the lump sum of what we get in revenue. Okay.
Okay.
Just lower that hand. I'll move on to the next one. And the next one here is the Runlet winter sports here. Now, the other thing is too, some of these sports, I'm showing you what's budgeted. It doesn't mean that that's actually what got filled. If and also if a sport is filled, and there is multiple positions for that, you'll see all that breakdown as far as who got what. And I have all that detail. I just didn't present it all on the screen. There was only so much I can fill in, but I just wanted you to understand what right now we're budgeting. And obviously, when there is an increase to the what's called B1, and we'll talk about this more as we get into the collective bargaining agreement for the teachers, as that increases, it's a domino effect. It affects all of these programs as well. And here we are at the spring sports for high school. And then Runlet spring sports. This is what we show as budgeted right now. So when you take all those sheets and add them up, this is the breakdown of what we pay in stipends per season. And then you add FICA, New Hampshire retirement, which is what we budget at the teacher rate for every sport, because we don't know whether it's going to be a teacher or whether it's going to be someone that comes in from the outside, and this is all they do. So you're looking at about $477,000 for stipends for athletics. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to some other expenses. Oh,
Hey, Jack.
I have a feeling there's someone. Yep.
Yeah, Jim does. Jim.
Okay.
Hey,
Go ahead,
Jack,
Jim.
just a quick question. Those are all the stipends and item. Can you give me an estimate of what additional fees and costs are associated with athletics?
And you should see the next slide right on your screen. It says
Sorry.
athletic budget. That's okay. So we have contracted services, which are the game officials and also the athletic trainer. So you see each of those expenses in parentheses. Then at Concord High, you have the game officials, you have physician services, umpires, police coverage, and the athletic trainer. Because we have a Runlet and we have a Concord High, and we do contract that out. And then you have repairs and service, which are inspections that are due, and a variety of different pieces. especially when you get into some of the helmets and the reconditioning. That's a significant expense. I mean, of that 10,000, 7,200 of that is football alone, just for the helmets. And then you get into rental of land and buildings, which are the porta potties at middle school. But then when you get into high school, you get into porta potties, the ice time, Memorial Field lights, Proctor Academy, because that's where alpine skiing is. So high school is definitely more than the middle school, but that's where your rental of land and buildings are. Then we also offer an student athletic insurance program, which the district covers. That covers some of those expenses in the event a student were to get hurt. They could submit a claim. I mean, it's not the greatest policy, but it's something that we do offer. And then there's also additional insurance policies that, and this is something that's really come up in the last 10 years, where we have to buy additional insured policies. This happens when we go to St. Paul's to use their ice rink. We need to buy an additional insured because it's over and above what our insurance carrier is allowed to offer by law. So then we get into some supplies where, you know, it's athletics. You're going to need to replace some of the things, equipment, basketballs, field paint, nets, medical supplies for the trainer, and that's at both levels. And then info access, there's an online system that allows parents to sign up and pay for their fee. And there's also a subscription to Agile Sports for a couple of the sports programs that helps enhance their training. And then we get into equipment and anything from full-blown net replacement to basketball hoop replacement. Anything can come up. And then your dues and fees get into your signer fees, which we pay to the individual people that are signed up to facilitate the actual game, invitationals, tournaments, league dues, and memberships. Steve, anything else you want to comment on the other expenses?
Nope, I think that's pretty well broken out. You know, occasionally, you know, things break. The track equipment comes to mind. That's very expensive. But other than that, mostly we buy balls. We recondition things that need to be certified as safe, helmets, shoulder pads, things like that. It's a pretty bare-boned operation. It's, you know, balls. And for instance, you know, we don't, Concord is one of the only districts that doesn't budget anything for uniforms. And last time I surveyed a few schools, I know Londonderry had 70 grand in there for uniforms. Our uniforms are totally paid for by booster groups.
The other piece is Memorial Field is something that we use. You see there, we pay under the building rental. We pay for the lights there. But there's also items that come up where the city may reach out to us and say, we need to replace some soccer goals. You use it, you know, community uses it. Are you willing to split it? And whenever we have money, we're always there to help, you know, facilitate with that and help with those costs. And Steve does a great job in working with the Parks and Rec director, David Gill, to try to get these things done. Obviously, one of the things in the budget we'll be discussing is the lights at Memorial Field. That'll come up in the budget, and that'll be a good conversation. I think it came up in the Joint City School Board meeting as well.
Yep. Yes,
but we will be bringing that forward because it's a significant expense of probably about $400,000 to replace those lights. So, okay. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So the other thing is transportation costs. And what we wanted to show you, because we don't have anything so far this year because it's been not as much as it has been in the past. So that you understand, we create a mechanism to be able to track the mileage. And if you take a look at about the fourth one down, Concord High Athletics, we give them 27,000 miles. So every athletic trip that's done, they submit to transportation, particularly Gary Ford. He goes, measures out the miles, says, okay, you got 27,000, take out this much for this trip. So everything is tracked to determine how much in miles. And these miles are based off these all-in costs of what it takes to run the transportation system. So as you can see in last year, and granted the caveat here is we didn't really run a spring season because I think I note, you'll see it a little later on, I think it was May 4th when the governor determined that's it, we're remote for the rest of the year, even though we went out, I think March 13th, remote then. But, you know, they left 6,300 miles on the table as far as Concord High Athletics. And then when you go about the third one up from the bottom, they left 337 miles available for middle school athletics. But that's how we track this and co-curricular as well.
Oh.
It's pretty detailed. They really.
Just
Yep.
to add to what Barbara, sorry, Jack, to what
Yep.
Barbara was talking about earlier, we've been having a lot of success. So we go deep into the playoffs and tournaments and a lot of sports, and you know, winning costs money. So you know, more trips, the further you go in these tournaments and these playoffs, there's a few more trips. So the miles have been a little higher because we've been so successful of late.
And when we budget, you know, some teams go ahead, some teams don't. So we'll move funds to be able to accommodate that. We don't budget as if every team is a championship team.
No.
That I think that's an important note. And as you'll see, except for last year, which was different, the athletic program leaves about $20,000 on the table for a year-end fund balance. So they budget pretty tight. Steve and I talk pretty often. If something comes up that he needs and there's a way to accommodate that, we're going to do it. I want to say, what are we looking at, Steve? 12 to 1,400 kids participate a year in the athletic program?
Average year, be about 1,200 at the high school, approximately 600 at the middle school.
Yeah.
In the average year, we're down like everybody else a little bit this year. Numbers are still pretty representative, but we're probably down a couple hundred kids this year. But average between the two schools, close to 1,800.
Yeah.
We also need to do a shout out to transportation here. Sometimes you have 3 or 4 teams playing and 2 buses available because drivers that have afternoon routes have to be switched. It's an unbelievable juggling act to get these kids transported. And oftentimes we'll have 2 teams together and one gets dropped off. But this is a way that we save a lot of mileage as well. So looking, you know, we have a transportation budget and transportation is not cheap. And so athletics is a piece of it. So, you know, Steve, you can attest to this. It's an unbelievable process. Takes a lot of wall space to figure out buses and who goes where.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Barbara. I will say unequivocally that Gary Ford is one of the best employees in the Concord School District. He is a bus savant, and
Yes.
he works from a place where he cares deeply about every kid on every bus. And if he says we can't go, we can't go, because that doesn't happen very often. So I am more than happy to endorse those folks over there as going the extra mile, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree.
But I've been told I take a back seat to Gary Ford. I am number 2. So I get it. I completely get it. So
Barb, Pam has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Pam.
Hi, the number of athletes, I assume that's some kids are double counted in that. It's number participation through all the sports, right? So it's not 1,200 additional kids. Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's a good question.
all right. So just to give you an overall summary of the budget, you can see here what their expense budget is and what the revenue is. And I think this came up early on about how much we bring in. And again, this is a combination of gate receipts and how many kids pay the 85, 90, and 385. So as you can see, I mean, 2020 was down a little bit, but even though I note May 4th, it's pretty much May 13th. But, you know, to give credit to Steve and his staff, they tried to prep those kids. I think we all heard, oh, we're going to be out a couple weeks. They still continue to prep those kids to be ready and condition them for a season. And unfortunately, you know, especially for those seniors, they didn't have a season. And now in 2021, this is where we're at as far as this is both fall and winter. We had budgeted 100,000. We had dropped that a little bit. You know, I don't expect to hit the 100 one more season, considering where we are. But you know, we'll do what we can do to help support those kids and Steve and the staff's program.
Thank you, Jack.
So I'm gonna move, if it's okay, unless there's questions, I gotta flip to another screen in order to see it. I'm gonna move on to just co-curricular, if I could. So at the elementary level for co-curricular, again, this is in the teacher contract. Per the CBA, each elementary school receives a stipend of about $6,000. So what happens is they pick their clubs, and they're paid $15 an hour, and there's a determinate number of hours. So basically, that 6,000 equates to about 400 hours for each of the 5 elementary schools. Okay.
And those are things like language club or crypto, those kinds of things.
Yeah, this is anything from, so I'm looking at Abbott Downing. You had a yearbook club advisor, you had student union this year. If I move over to Beaver Meadow, I'm sorry, Broken Ground. That's because I'm looking at current year, and right now, because of the up, down, I don't see
student
much.
actors program, like Beaver Meadow has the big theater program.
They have
So
math, they have math teams, they have SAP, student actors program. They have, you know, theater club. They have crypto club, girls at work, jump rope club.
Yeah.
So they have a variety of different things. Yeah. And then if I move on to Runlet, and I'm going to just jump over to my screen. Yeah. These are the programs that we budgeted for this year for the different club positions. But then they also have a leadership position piece within the collective bargaining agreement too. So I give you what the total stipend is that we budgeted and how much that grand total is between, because we always budget the stipend, FICA, and the teacher rate New Hampshire retirement, because a majority of them are what our teaching staff does. Some of them are folks that this is all they do. They're not a teacher in the district, but they get that stipend, and they are a person that actually runs that club, but that's all they do. So we do have some of those. And then, as I said, when I get down to the leadership position, they have 5 positions that are leaders in their specific areas of education, and that shows you that's a total stipend of about 25,000. Now, most of these positions too, if there are 2 people that want to teach or run a club, they split the stipend. It doesn't mean that every person that runs that club gets that same stipend. It's a little different in that leadership position piece. They're all getting that same percentage. Okay, that's the only one that's has a caveat to it. Here's high school. These are the various clubs that are around there and what those stipends are.
I want to make a clarification for people in the public. some of these things, orchestra, band, chorus, those classes all meet during the school day. So they sort of straddle a class versus a co-curricular. So I just wanted to point that out because someone might be looking at this and saying, well, wait a minute, my daughter does orchestra. She has that in school. So that, and I think that addresses the after school, the concerts, the marching and parades, the playing at football games, all the things that those extra things that those classes entail. Is that
And I think the rope piece, they also have 2 weekends in there. Am I right on that, Donna?
Yep.
1 or 2 weekends, if not more.
It's more than 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that is why they're commensurate with the positions that they do.
Yeah.
And we're appreciative of that. And here's another list of even more clubs. I couldn't fit it all on one page. So you see from a budget standpoint between the actual stipend, FICA, New Hampshire retirement, about $117,000 for these various clubs at the high school level. All right. Any questions as far as it relates to athletics or co-curricular before we move on to the guidance matrix?
I see Gina's hand up, Barb.
Let me see. Yep, I do. All right, Gina. Thank you, Kathleen. I don't always see these.
Yeah, I can see them. So that's fine.
Perfect.
So we've got about 1,800 participants in athletics. How many participants roughly do we have in the co-curriculars?
I couldn't answer that right now. I honestly couldn't answer it.
We should look into that though.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
We can do that. Absolutely.
My immediate thought in looking at the numbers, boy, our kids get a lot of bang for the buck. Just having been in the district as long as I have, there is something for everyone after school to find a way to fit in and have a school experience that isn't behind a desk. So that's nice.
Barbara, if I could just editorialize for a second, it's not really my area, but that's a very Concord High thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a common. I've worked in several other districts. It's not common to have that many clubs. I mean, the club culture at Concord High is very strong and very healthy. And like I said, it really doesn't have that much to do with me, but I admire it. And it's there's a lot of kids. I don't know what the number is, but there's something for everybody. And I think that is a point of pride for Concord High School.
Well, you're in the building at that time, so practices are after school. That's when club meetings are and all this. So you see it, yeah.
I see them out there, yeah. It's very much a point of pride, I believe.
I think so too.
And I want to point out that the 21C program, 21st Century After School program, it is not represented in that because it's grant funds, competitive grant funds that we've been lucky enough to get for many years and pay enormous number of for enormous number of opportunities for lots and lots of kids right across the district, kindergarten through 12th grade.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, are there any other comments on athletics or co-curricular? Any specific finance committee members have any questions about the money piece? All right. All right, I think it's still the Jack and Kathleen show, yes?
Yeah,
I think
so
this might, yep, go ahead.
we just have one more piece to share with you, and this is really a draft. We wanted to present it in terms of to the instructional committee, just for your consideration. There's no expectation of vote or anything yet on that, but wanted to make sure that you had a chance to see it. As you know, the board asked us to go back to the drawing board and look at the guidance document that we could use when we're trying to decide on whether we have full in-person, remote learning, or we have hybrid. So we initially, in the beginning of the year, as you know, we developed it back in August, and we did develop a very conservative tool to help guide us as to how we would respond to the COVID-19. We found ourselves, there were so many different factors that impacted the decisions that we made relative to the model. Became very difficult, and as you know, we did struggle with it, especially as it related to numbers of cases in areas outside of school, and that Donna and I just talked today about the number of cases at the prison. Well, that affects Merrimack Valley, right? I mean Merrimack, the county of Merrimack, and so when you're trying to make decisions, the nursing homes was another. We saw a number of outbreaks, as you recall, and that affected our numbers, and we had to think about that as it related to what kind of model we were going to deliver with the youngsters. So we went back out and we used a lot of the data, all the data from the Department of Health and Human Services, and they've been great about providing different documents and guidance, and they've adjusted along the way in terms of what they are recommending. And again, they make it very clear that the information they provide to us is guidance, that in fact ultimately the decision is made in the district by the administrators and the school boards, not by the Health and Human Services, and that's fair. So Jack, can you scroll down a little bit so we can get to the first, it's a chart that we have. I think if you scroll down. Do I see Jack? Okay, there he is. Yeah. Can we scroll down a little bit, Jack?
Yeah, sorry, I got a little Christmas hint about a gift that we had to run out and get, so my wife pulled me aside, so I apologize.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Hopefully my kids don't watch this, because it's we're not, it's a little, yeah, we're not going to tell.
So I think you've all seen this. This has been in play throughout the pandemic, developed by Health and Human Services in terms of how you would assess the positivity, the number of cases, as well as hospitalizations. And obviously this was a tool that's ultimately is part of the total matrix. So if you keep scrolling down, you're all familiar with that. We've used that throughout. We go to the next page, and then we also used, and these are really important to us, the number of transmissions in each of the schools, as well as student absenteeism, and they were using for low, less than 15%, medium between 15 and 30, and high absenteeism above 30. So and we're around, we actually are in the low range there too, because I think it's the middle school was around 85, and the high school was 87, if I recall, in our numbers. And again, under staff capacity, there were three areas: normal, strained, and critical. We were falling between normal and strained. There were times when we were strained. We had folks that were in quarantine, and for a variety of reasons. And so that did put a stressor on us in terms of the impact in the schools. And then the final chart, which kind of took the first two and put them together, if we scroll down, I thought you were talking about more gifts, huh, Jack? So you take that information, the level of community transmission and the level of the school impact. We actually, when we first did that, we had more areas that we were in remote than the state had. So this is more aligned with the state recommendations relative to the outbreaks and all the data that we collect. So we think this is going to be a tool that will help us as we enter the January through March, April times, when we've been told that we are going to see continued high numbers. I'd like not to have that, but we have to be prepared. Again, this is just information about the intended use of the guide, and that it's really a recommendation from public health, and how we would make decisions based on that in Concord, and what's right. And you know, it's always debatable, especially when you're talking about transmission. You know, we do contact tracing because we want to know if there's any transmission. So we identify all those youngsters who may have, and teachers, by the way, who may have been in contact. And then we kind of wait to see if if they receive a positive test. So that's how we have to determine the data that is used in this particular matrix. Donna, do you want to add anything to it? You were a big help in.
No, I think it's pretty clear. It's just that we had originally been very conservative, and we have pivoted to where the state made their recommendations. But we watch the numbers every day, many numbers. So we're really cautious about making sure that we know what's going on.
Do you have any question? Tom does. Tom?
Thanks. So I didn't get a chance to read that entire last part of that document, but I'm sure you have some sort of numbers that go together with minimal, or I've forgotten the terms that you use, but substantial. What are there numbers that in your brain and in writing somewhere that tell you what those are?
Right. If you look at, Jack, can you put that matrix back up on the screen and go to the first page? Because that's where the numbers are, Tom.
Okay.
The first set of numbers that we would use.
Again, that's what I.
Yeah. One more, Jack. Keep going. It's number one. There it is. So here's one piece of it. Okay. That's the what's happening around community. Okay. In the community, we're at minimal, moderate, or substantial based on those numbers.
Got it. Thank you.
And that we've used that all along, Tom.
Yeah, and I know you have, and I didn't know if, because you changed the matrix down below, if that had adjusted any of that. So
right. No, we left that alone. We go ahead, Donna.
No, that wasn't me actually. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
Oh, somebody's got their hand up. I'm not sure who it is.
It's me.
Okay.
But I wanted to make sure Tom's question was answered first.
Yes, it was. And it absolutely was. Because the change of the chart down below, I didn't know if that affected what substantial, moderate, minimal meant. And that's all I wanted to know, if these are staying the same.
No,
So
thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Kathleen, I'm going to ask the question with regards to the chart, the next chart.
Okay.
Down, the one that's currently displayed.
Yeah.
And you specifically looking at normal, strained, and critical. They seem very subjective. Can you talk a little about how you determine if something is normal, strained, or critical with regards to the staff impact, I believe? I'm trying to remember what that was.
That's a great question. You know, we have to work with the building principals, and it's based on, do I have enough staff? For instance, this week, when we finally had to make a decision about Krista McCall, if it was based on staff. Remember now, on any given day, you can have a staff member out sick. We can have staff members who are on long-term, long-term, maybe it's a maternity leave or a paternity leave. You know, we have those. Those are still going on in the district, all right? We have people who are out on long-term disability based on a medical issue. Then on top of that, we have people who have tested positive, and then their family has to, like in one case, we had a husband and wife. So it really does depend Jim, on what the principals are telling us in their ability to deliver the instruction to the youngsters.
Okay, thank you. So it's not, you can't really tighten it down more than that because it's going to be school specific and position specific is what I'm
Right.
hearing.
And
Thank you.
you know, the principals have been great. They have been utilizing every resource available in their building from, you know, we got some extra monitors in the building. We use those. We use some of our educational assistants to help us, our tutors, and a lot, you know, they have degrees and they fill in wherever we can. So I have to say they've been very resourceful. We got to a point where we knew we were strained. That's where we're kind of where we've been, is in the strained area.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay. So I guess, Barb, I don't know what you would like for next steps. I mean, do you want this to, what would you like to do to proceed with this?
I think my general feeling is there's so much that's going to happen in the next few weeks that we can't really anticipate. And we have a 2-week vacation, you know, break coming up. I think what makes the most sense is for the administrative staff, you and Donna, the principals, to sort of continue monitoring. I'm sure even though we're on break, if we have district people that test positive, we're going to get those numbers and find out. I don't think there's anything to do right now. I think that we need to commit to getting, when, you know, when the school year starts again in January, that we make decisions at that time based on where we are in that matrix at that time. You know, I think, you know, as frustrating as it's been for some people to see that, you know, this school's hybrid, but this school isn't, and all this. The really smart, good thing we did here as a district is we let the numbers and what was happening on that day dictate our decisions, as opposed to trying to guess and perhaps guessing incorrectly. And there are so many things that go into this. I don't feel comfortable suggesting we make some significant specific move right now. I think we have to continue the march right now, and just use absolute current data in an honest, transparent way come January. Does anyone else have a comment on this?
And Barb, we can bring it back, you know, to the instructional meeting that's in January. So I feel comfortable doing that.
Okay. I just don't think we as a group can sit here and make a decision based on things that haven't happened yet, and that sort of thing. David, please.
I do agree with what you're saying, with the recognition that jumping from remote to hybrid is challenging, and and back. We want to acknowledge that. I think we also want to acknowledge that we do believe that even though maybe they're not getting the amount of FaceTime that we'd like when they're hybrid, that some amount of FaceTime is probably better than no amount of FaceTime if it is safe. And, you know, that may not be a board statement, but it's something that I believe, given the full picture. Of course, it's our hope that by the end of this, you know, by the end of the school year, we're going to be having enough vaccines, but that will make a difference. But in reality, we're looking at this for the remainder of the school year. And are we going to be jumping back and forth? I think this question is going to come up again. It comes up every time. I think we need to be prepared to continue to address it. But I think it is the way we've been operating is, if we feel safe, we get students back in school some of the time. And that's really all I have to say. And we will face the criticism for that.
Right.
Yep.
Anyone else? Well, I do have to say, Kathleen, the work is impressive. I mean, you're running a district, and on top of that, managing a pandemic. So, you know, we're always going to have people that are telling us we're doing it wrong. There are so many sides to this. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. All we can do is take the information we have and do the best we can with that information. And I feel like in all of the things we talked about tonight, lots and lots and lots of focus has gone into everything. So yeah, I don't feel that we have to do some official thing right now. I think that this is unbelievably good information. I would encourage all board members to pay attention and stay on top of it and keep up with what our district is doing, so that when we speak knowledgeably and accurately.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, so that's the end.
all I
Yes?
have.
All right. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn from somebody, or we can stay on all night.
I move to adjourn. This is Dave.
All right, David moves it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yay, Danielle, we got the Ds working for us right now. Okay, do I need to do a roll call vote for this or no? I don't remember.
No,
This
I don't.
board.
All right, so all board members in favor of adjourning now, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And again, community members, if you're listening and have questions or comments, please email them in. We really do appreciate the feedback. All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a nice night, everybody.
Good job.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb.